And welcome to This Weekend Perfect Team. I'm your host, DRC. And joining me as always tonight is your Kidneys. How we doing, Kidneys?
Doing great.
Looking great tonight. I can tell that the webcam angle has changed. How much time did that take you to set up?
Literally 30 seconds. Just did it because Walnut called me out on it, I think. And I was tired of the boomers complaining, so...
Well, you Zoomers and your tech, you guys go together like peanut butter and jelly, so very impressive. Hello to everyone in the chat. Hope you guys are doing good. We are coming on early. You know, we normally don't come on till the top of the hour, but with Rich not in today, we figured we'd let everyone get to bed a little bit earlier and get their community feedback for the cards that were just dropped a little bit earlier as well. So hopefully we're not missing too many people that were waiting for the top of the hour. But good to see the chatters that are already chatting us up here in the channel. So before we jump into the cards, let's just go over the program schedule real quick again. So here we are. We're early. So it's normally on at 11 p.m. Eastern. It's 10:30 right now, as mentioned before. On Sundays, I do broadcast the Perfect League World Series, and will continue to do so until I get relegated from the Perfect League, which this week is looking like it may happen. So if you have some good vibes to throw towards the Naperville Nomads for the Perfect League, please do send them now, because we're running out of daylight and the team still has not clicked. So again, join us on Sunday for the Perfect League World Series. We'll definitely do it this Sunday because they can't kick me out of the league before then. But for Sundays in the future, that'll be dependent on how successful the team is between now and the end of the week. And then on Tuesdays, this was a show that we just debuted this week. And our guest this week was Walnut33. If you missed the show, go check it out right when we're done here tonight. It might be the best thing that we've produced on this channel. It was a super awesome interview where we were really able to get to understand the person behind the screen name. So Walnut's a pretty big Discord persona, but I think that a lot of people who watched the interview and had a chance to hear what he had to say grew to know him much better as a person and less as just a screen name that likes to cause a ruckus on the Discord. And next week, not to bury the lead here, but next week, this coming Tuesday, we're going to have Mac Jacks. So 3-time Perfect League champion. If there's anyone that you want to get advice from, it's probably him. So make sure you join us for that. Should be great. One more thing. So format update. So apparently, from community feedback, we've learned that muscling through a dry analysis of 20 plus cards can get a little bit dry, as referenced. So tonight, we're going to liven it up a little bit. We might hustle a little bit more on some of the cards that don't necessarily have a huge meta impact, but we're doing it to set up something that we have prepared at the end. So Kidneys and I have spent a lot of time talking about cards and how they don't fit into the meta. Tonight, we're going to talk about what that meta is. And if he and I owned all the cards, what would our team look like? And so tonight, we're going to start with offense. So you'll get to see the teams that we throw on the field. We'll probably talk about lineup formation as well, but definitely stick around for that. That'll be the second half of the stream tonight. But enough about that. Let's go ahead and jump into the cards that were just dropped. So Chris just got finished a short 30 minutes ago. So let's jump into them right now. Our first card is an Iron. It's an Edgar Renteria. And my shorthand notes here just basically look to the speed. So he's definitely got high speed, but it's that toxic type of speed. As we've talked about with streams in the past, when your speed is significantly higher than your stealing, that's not necessarily a good thing. And that can result in a lot of caught stealings. Now, I don't know the Iron Tourney meta well enough to know if there's a catcher in there that's going to be able to exploit that. So that's for someone else to determine, but that's definitely something for you to get in the habit of thinking about when you do look at cards and see that delineation there. Kidneys, what do you see with this card?
I mean, he can hit an iron. It probably, even with having the speed higher than the stealing, like we've talked about, he could definitely run at iron. With catchers not having the greatest defense down there, normally in the 60s, is like your upper end. But no, defense is definitely too low, and in a tournament type setting, he can't play, right? Just because he only has stock at shortstop, right? So
It's only stock at shortstop, and it's not necessarily great stock. Now, one thing I wanted to touch on before we moved on from this card is just like the ideal profile, the ideal relationship between contact, power, eye. So when I see someone with a profile that looks like this, it kind of reminds me a little bit of Ichiro, where there's two things that are stand out are really contact and avoid, and you have the super low power. Is that something that you've seen be a profile that really lifts cards above their backup card rating?
I remember a week ago, or 2 weeks ago, we had Maury Willis, I think is the card name, and I called it a crescent, right? Where you go from contact and you kind of make this curve back up to avoid K. And it's a really good profile for a contact hitter. It's probably one of the best profiles for a contact hitter with the lower power boosting your BAPIP. And so he's going to hit certainly at an iron level. But it's just the problem is you really can't play him in the field. Is just what holds this card back.
All right, enough about Edgar. Let's move on to Don Larson. Again, the only pitcher to ever throw a perfect game in the World Series. What's most unique about this card is just how splitty he is on the stuff. I don't know many other cards that have that 18-point delineation between handedness, especially not down at the bronze level. But I found that somewhat interesting in looking at who he profiles similarly to. The only near meta piece that I noticed was Dick Drott in his versus right similarity table. He's basically Dick Drott with less stuff, but a little bit more movement and control. Now, Drott's not someone that I'd recommend having in your bronze rotation, but he's someone who had his 15 minutes in the early meta as the bronze meta was really taking shape in this year's version of the game. But what do you think of Don Larson?
I play quite a bit of bronze, and normally for bronze, high stuff is better, but you also want high control and kind of at the cost of movement. And while this card doesn't have great movement, it also doesn't have great control. So I don't really see a place in bronze for this card. If you do play it, maybe you try it as like a right-hand specialist, but I just think it's too low control to succeed, even with 84 stuff.
Yeah, and the other thing that listeners might benefit from hearing is just that when you do set that specialist designation in your bullpen, those pitchers get very, very few innings. And it's almost so few to the point where I'd say that roster spot is better leveraged to do an additional platoon bat if you're going to put a specialist out there. So just something to keep in mind. Moving on, we've got David Freese. So silver piece here. One significantly better versus left-hand pitching. The contact and the control both boost significantly there. The eye and the avoid K is slightly better there. From a defense perspective, it's not that strong. I spent at least a hot minute in the silver tourney meta until wait till next year kicked me out. And I know that third basemen normally have a lot better defense than this and probably a better bat profile. So I don't expect David Freese to dent the meta, which certainly doesn't bother me as a Cubs fan who was almost sickened by seeing what he did in the playoffs way back in 2011. But what do you think about Freese?
Yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. He's too low to make it as a third baseman, but his bat just quite isn't there to be a DH. A little bit too low on the avoid K to just crack the bat as like maybe a left-handed batting specialist. I was just thrown off a little bit there seeing left-handed pitcher again.
Yeah.
So he's just a little bit short, I think, as a silver that can hit left-handed pitching. To show up as a DH.
Moving on, we've got Reggie Jackson, probably one of the more famous postseason performers, Mr. October himself. But he's got a card here that I think is not going to be played too widely here. The contact and avoid K profile. I have in my shorthand notes here just calling it toxic. When your contact is that low to begin with and your avoid Ks is almost horrifically low, it's just really hard to crack into a lineup. But I am no gold tourney expert. So why don't you pass along what some of your sources share about what they think of this card?
Yep. So our gold tourney experts, just not a fan. I mean, it's really avoid Ks is everything right now. Just because it's how often, like I keep repeating and I'll keep repeating it. I mean, it's how often you get your bat on the ball and how often you can try and get that ball in play. So if your bat keeps missing the ball, you just have no chance to get in play. He's never going to get get that power rating to really even get an effect. So.
Yeah, and the defense is atrocious here, so it's definitely DH level defense only. However, if that was an 80, 85, 90 rated right field with some decent range, I still don't know that this is a card that people would be rushing for. I think the bat is just going to underperform. So given the fact that it is DH only, I think it's just not really going to dent the meta.
No, I don't think so. I think even if this card was a 79, it wouldn't dent the meta. I would struggle to play this card if it was a 69 in my bronze tournaments, I think.
I think that's saying a lot.
Yeah.
Moving on, we've got Frank Viola, 80 rated left-hand pitching starter. Pretty neutral on the splits. Not quite a mirror pitcher, but close to it. A little bit stronger versus right, so a very slight reverse split on him. Very high stamina, very high hold runner, and then he does have one pitch that grades significantly high, so you'd expect at least a decent stuff boost going into the pen. What did our gold tourney expert think of this one?
We got awesome gold pitching tonight. This one comes up just a little bit short because he's just a little bit too low in that control, really, to make an impact in the meta. And he's also a left-handed pitching starter. From what I've heard, there's a few teams out there who are running very lefty-heavy teams in gold, but the vast majority of them go for right-handed pitching right now with how the meta has evolved in gold tourneys. So unless you're somebody who's a big standout, like our Mark Burley we've gotten later tonight, we're going to show off. But probably not enough to make an impact for this card.
Moving on, we've got Kurt Schilling. So Mr. Bloody Sock himself. He's got a fly ball pitcher designation, as we've talked about in recent weeks. That's one that likely is the rarest of all of the tendencies that you can have on your GB fly ball versus neutral. And then from a splits perspective, slightly better versus right-hand pitching. The stuff gets a nice little boost there, movement, a nice little boost. But overall, that movement seems kind of soft for gold. But what do you think?
I've heard really positive feedback about this card for gold, just because the stuff in the control weighs out really well, and also because of the fly ball pitching designation. So it's harder to have good movement with a fly ball pitching designation. And yeah, he does have the lower end, coming in at almost 60. But I know there's some players who like to run a high defense kind of outfield with, like Lofton and Ichiro and those kind of players in a gold tournament setting. And so if you can get some sort of pitcher like Schilling, and I think there's one or two others that are good that have fly ball, it's very rare in this version of the game to have fly ball pitching. But you can actually just get it so people hit the ball to your outfielders more often. It doesn't mean that home runs are more likely. That's already incorporated into the movement rating. So no, it's just it's actually a benefit to your team if you have good outfield defense. So it's a cool card.
Yeah, not to put you on the spot here, but I'm trying to rack my own brain and think of if there's any fly ball pitcher designations that are currently at the highest level, playing in Perfect League or in a very competitive Diamond League. I'm sure it would be a reliever. I'm just trying to think of who that would be. Are there any that come to mind for you?
I can double check that if you give me a minute. The highest one that's a starter who would be played as a reliever is Bobby Matthews, is a fly ball pitcher.
That's a good one.
And then if I look at true relievers...
Yeah, shame on me for not knowing Bobby Matthews. He's been in my bullpen forever. So it's something that I missed.
Is it really a good example of a true reliever who's fly ball?
I think Kimbrel is, but Kimbrel's far outside the meta at this point.
Is, yes, but not really a great meta example anymore. You're correct on that one, yes.
All right, we'll move on to Mark Burley. And I feel like this was the first really value bomb of the night that Chris dropped on us. I mean, a card with just extreme control for gold. I'd venture a guess that he's probably got the highest in the gold meta now. He's got the ground ball pitcher designation, which really feeds into someone who has prioritized infield defense. The hold runners is perfect. So 100 hold runners, not something that you want to target as a primary attribute, but something that definitely doesn't hurt you as you're looking to extract maximum value. And the movement's pretty strong here. So really your weakness is stuff, and it definitely is weak. But I'm going to venture a guess that this is a card that gold tourney aficionados are going to be actively and aggressively seeking out.
So between the playoff missions hype and gold tournament hype, the first version of this card, I believe, just sold for 100,000 perfect points.
Wow.
And man, it's a good card. On paper, if we're comparing this card in league play, not tournament play, it's the best gold card. In tournament play, it's actually rather contested. And it was contested, I think, between Schilling, Burley, and Halliday. Which one of the three was the best cold card we got tonight from some of our experts? And I think a lot of that is the meta in gold tournaments favoring right-handed pitching right now, is what I heard. I mean, in a vacuum, if this card was a right-handed pitcher, just because of matchups, it would be better, right? But, he's got a ground ball designation. He's got almost 100 control as a gold card. He's got great movement. His just weakness, is the stuff, right? But, I mean, he's just a card that the ball is going to be in play a lot. So if you run a really good, strong defensive team that's going to compensate for his weakness being a left-handed pitcher, then this is going to be an out-of-this-world card for you in a gold tournament.
Yeah, and I know Lou Burdett is a hardcore meta card right now. So that's an 89 rated card, and that's on his comp table in all three designations: general versus left and versus right. And so if you're looking at the delta here, Burley is basically an ultra powered Burdett versus left, where he's Burdett plus stuff and plus control. And then as you look at his versus right, this is where the trade-off exists. So Burdett has much stronger movement. Burdett has slightly less control and stuff. So I'm curious as to who's going to perform better in extracted tourney statistics, Burdett or Burley. My guess would be Burley, but I guess that probably is something that's going to be born out of what the meta lineups are. How many left-handed batters are in a V left-hand pitcher starting lineup, because Burley's going to be significantly better than Burdett at those.
I would actually put my money on Burdett just because he's a right-handed pitcher. I hadn't actually seen the Burdett card before until I just looked it up right now. And that is a really close comp. So that's interesting. Certainly more splitty on the Burdett, but it's very close. So it's going to be interesting to see how this card shapes up the meta, because it's certainly going to shape up the meta as more of these get in play. And it'll be fascinating to see what all our because we have a lot of players who love gold tourneys. We hang around, so it'll be great to see what they think of them.
Yeah, and as you do look at that similarity score table, you've got a bunch of high golds, and you've even got some low diamonds in there. So I think this card's going to be very competitive, and I'm excited to see as people start playing it. Now, how quickly will this enter the meta? That's another question, because this is not only going to be sought after by people looking to plug it into a tourney lineup. This is going to be sought after by people looking to secure their toppers. So the big money, the whale money, that might outpace the tourney grinder money. And I know there's some overlap there, but this isn't just like a normal gold tourney card that drops in a regular content release. This is a gold tourney card that every collector, especially the highest level collectors, are going to want, even if they have no interest or no use case for a gold tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the big question, right? It's a very interesting set. I mean, we saw the first Iron Edgar Renteria sold for 10K, right? Like, this is kind of unprecedented, the supply and demand for these cards right now. So how fast are you going to see these cards in gold tournaments? I mean, it's not going to be very fast, probably, because a lot of people that are picking these cards up probably aren't even going to care about the gold tournaments. They just want Bumgarner right now. So we'll see, right?
With that, we'll go ahead and drop, and I think I crushed the animation, so let me go back so we can see it. And here it comes in. So this is my favorite. This is my hand-picked card of the set here, not because it's the best card in the set, but because I think it might be the most disruptive for its own tournament meta. And I'm curious to see just what this starts going for once it starts hitting the auction house, and when you have that really bimodal search happening, where you have the people just trying to finish their collections, as well as those that actually have aspirations to put them into tourney lineups. Moving on, we've got Roy Halladay. And you tipped your hand a little bit here, Kidneys, saying that that there's some debate as to which was the best tourney card that we got tonight. This was another one. And when I looked at this card, I basically saw, and I guess I shouldn't call it a diet version of the Burley card, but maybe a slight trade-off version of the Burley card. So you're giving up the control. And I know you've spent much of our airtime talking about the virtues of control and just how important it is in today's FIP calculation. But in exchange for it, you're getting some stuff. So you're not in the low 60s or high 50s on stuff. You're still a ground ball pitcher. You're a right-handed pitcher, which depending on the handedness of lineups and gold tournaments could be a good thing or bad thing. And the hold runners, again, negligible impact there and not too different. But what do you think of this one?
Really good. Also got the ground ball designation right, so you could definitely see a very infield heavy team coming up with some of these new cards. The real reason here why I think some of our analysts might really like this card over the Burley is he's a right-handed pitcher. I've talked a lot about tonight the impact of a lot of these teams. I know some people, like I know Yuo Kazim is running a full lefty team, and I know there's a few others who are running that. But I from what I've understand, the meta right now is mainly right-handed pitcher heavy, and so he fits into that. And then as well, there's a certain point where you fall under. We talk a lot about benchmarks, right? You fall under a certain number, and you don't become as effective, right? And so just having the 70 stuff versus the 60 stuff could be a big impact once you start looking into it, right? And once we start running data and running tournaments and things like that, right? So it's interesting. And that'll be one. We'll probably have to see more data to see how it plays out, but he certainly has the stuff to be an excellent tournament card. I mean, it's just Burley has such an outlier with that control that you just look at him and he kind of blows you away, but he may not necessarily be the best gold card we've seen tonight, right?
So two things for you, Kidneys. One, it's Burley, not Burley. And then two, is it really Yuo Kazim? Because I've always been saying Yuo Chasm.
It could be either way. I'm really bad with names, as you may have picked up on the show. I'm very bad with names, so.
No worries. I'll have to ask him about that.
I dropped an Eric. I did this because I used to call him this when I was a very little kid. Because I used to watch him in the playoffs, but I dropped an Eric Gagne.
Oh, I heard that one. I didn't correct you last week on that one.
Yeah. But I dropped that one on purpose because it was my own throwback. But
very good. We'll move on to Kirk Gibson now. Kirk Gibson with probably the most famous postseason home run outside of maybe Joe Carter's walk-off. Definitely one that gets played on highlight reels over and over again. And he's got a card here that I don't know will get played over and over again. I'm no Diamond Tournament expert, but I think that within that meta, I would expect you need a stronger contact profile or a stronger glove to be able to compete.
Yeah, you look at the similarity scores, V left and just overall, and they're not great, right? You're looking at V left, he's hitting against, there's a 75 in there. And then overall, his best comp is like an 84. So he's in a rough place. He's got very low void K. His contact's only an 86. He's got power as his best stat, and his defensive metrics aren't great. So just overall, probably not going to make an impact as a low diamond in the meta.
David Cone, 97 rated starter, strong stamina, a lot of stuff, potentially acceptable control for the Diamond tourney scene. Definitely not going to impact the Diamond League or Perfect League scene. But what do you think of Cone?
I've gotten mixed reviews on this card, and my gut feeling is a no. And some people, reactions in chat where this is good for Diamond tournaments. And then our expert Doc got back to me and he goes, I don't like it. It's got too little control for a Diamond tournament. And that's what I tend to agree with. It's a split heavy card with high stuff that, maybe it's passable out of the pen in a Diamond tournament. You can certainly play this card out of the bullpen up until gold, right? If you're a newer player. It's not going to be a budget card though, because of the missions. So it's hard to see a place for this card other than as a mission piece.
Yeah, I would expect a decent pen boost. You've got the 95 rated fastball and the 99 rated slider. And versus right only, if we're really looking at him as someone who's going to come in and predominantly face right-handed batters out of the pen, you're starting with a basis of 123. So this is really like a budget version of like a Jose Fernandez, which has the same movement and control profile, but just way less stuff.
Right, and the issue is, like, if we're talking league play, he's going to cost as much as Jose Fernandez if, the cost of these cards is saying anything right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Jose Fernandez is only 80K, and like I said, the Burley went for 100 and the Iron card going for 10. Obviously, that's not going to hold, but if the overall toppers are very good, then he very well could be like, a 60, 70K card. So, it'll be a wait-and-see game with him. I'm not sure. I know Fabix asking in the chat what other diamond starters are good for stuff. I believe the similar comp to Cone, off the top of my head, is like, Valenzuela, you can see on the sheet, is a good one, or Sid Fernandez. And there's also Roger Clemens, I'm thinking of, is a good comp for somebody that might do a little bit better.
Very good. We'll move on to Bernie Williams here. Bernie Williams, one of my personal favorite baseball players growing up. So when I grew up, I was in the Atlanta area, and I was just miserably surrounded by Braves fans winning a division every single year. And my Cubs were doing nothing to ease those pains. So I kind of adopted the Yankees when they bumped into the Braves in the World Series in '96. And Bernie Williams was probably my favorite player on that team. And this card here, I think, is a really cool card. I think you have very playable, legitimate center field defense, and I think he's a split hitter, or a switch hitter, excuse me, which gives a boost because you're very rarely facing the pitcher's dominant side, because most right-handed pitchers are better versus right-hand batters, and most left-hand pitchers are better against left-hand batters. So you're kind of avoiding that force multiplier that pitchers have at all times, regardless of what type of pitcher you're facing. And then as you look at his versus left-hand pitching profile here, you're very contact heavy and very acceptable to avoid Ks. So I'm curious to hear what Doc had to think of this card. I would expect this card to be very playable, at least from a defensive perspective, and I'd expect it to hit some too.
He was actually not that high on this card, which surprised me a little bit. But after I was thinking about it, the issue with this card is there's just some other good competition in that position, where you have cards like Esi Ichiro that can just kind of compete for the same spot as a center fielder in a diamond tournament, right? So while he's good, I mean, he's certainly pretty good versus lefties for a diamond card in the tournament with good defense, right? Ichiro just does the job a little bit better. There's another card he mentioned, but it's not coming to me right now. And he's just very weak V-right. I mean, you can see his verse-right comparison are mainly diamond catchers, which is not a great comparison to have. So, I mean, V-left is very good, and his defense is very good. So there's certainly a place for him somewhere. Probably not league play again. Like I mentioned, the Cone is just the cost is going to be very high for a budget kind of build. In a tournament, he could be some sort of a bench player utility. I mean, as a switch hitter, right? Like you said, I love switch hitters and I love high defense. So he's certainly not useless. He does have his uses, but not going to be a shining star in a diamond tournament anytime soon.
Yeah, that similarity score table tells you all you need to know about the viability of this card in a high-level diamond league or in the perfect league. None of those similarities are still playing at this point. Cody Bellinger was probably the most competitive at one time, and Cody Bellinger, that was his weak side there. So diamond tournament card at best. Sounds like Doc's not in love with it, so we'll move on from here. Duke Snider's next. Now, I remember Duke Snider well because he was one of the live SCs that you got for completing the live Dodgers, and he actually won an MVP award for me way back when in whatever low-level league that was. As we look at this card here, if memory serves, this one's got better defense, and this one's got a really compelling bat profile versus right-hand batting. One that likely would have played even months into our current Diamond League meta. Now, in a post-Face of the Franchise world, I don't see a place for it here, But I wouldn't be surprised to hear if the feedback is that this is a pretty compelling tournament piece here, coming with both center field and right field stock defense.
Yes, absolutely. This is a great right field diamond tournament option. Up there with, I think it was Hugh Duffy and Tommy McCarthy. You're going to see a lot of play out of this for right. Probably you could even platoon it with one of those other mentioned options. He's got great defense. He's got a fantastic V right bat. Yeah, you're gonna love this card in a diamond tournament.
Yeah, and we don't have any hits on our Perfect League OPS table. We haven't had one yet in the slide deck here. So again, not one that's going to play in league play now in our post Face of the Franchise world. But there's some cards coming up here that we will have some hits for that column that's been empty for this presentation so far. And Jose Bautista is one that does give us some hits in our similarity score. Jose Bautista with one of the most epic postseason home runs as well. Probably one closer to Chris Jardine's heart than some of the other ones we were talking about earlier. But this card here, I think that the contact profile is going to be a challenge again. So you don't have 90 plus contact to really cover the low avoid K. You're very heavy on the power in the eye. Now the eye can certainly cover some of those ills with a high walk rate. From a defensive perspective, you are getting some variety here and some utility. So you're getting third base and a decent third base. We'll have to see what the specific ratings are and how that breaks down between the 4 infield metrics. And you're getting an outfield that is very arm heavy, but the range is not an absolute train wreck. From a bat similarity score perspective, most of our hits here aren't very impressive ones. So as you look at the overall table, he profiles somewhat similarly to Mike Schmidt. He's basically a Mike Schmidt that you give a little contact to and give 9 eye to, but take away some gap power and regular power. And then down in his versus lefty table, you've got Ted Williams SE, who Ted Williams is a left-hand bat, obviously different than Bautista, but struggles a bit versus lefties there. In the VR table, you've got a couple of right-hand bats that profile somewhat similarly to him in Mike Schmidt 100, as well as the Mike Trout 100 SE, and neither of those are really lighting the Perfect League on fire. But what do you see with Jose Bautista?
Man, I wish I could take that power number and I could just drag it down 2 slots, and this would be a fantastic card. But alas, not every card can be my favorite card, Johnny Evers. And it's okay. I mean, it's certainly not unplayable. It's got okay defense for a tournament, and it's got an okay, okay contact, okay Ks, and it's got great eye, right? Power is not something I care too much about when I'm building my team personally, so I don't care too much about 114 overall power, but it's playable. Would it be a top option for me if I was building a diamond team? Probably not. Would I probably pick Bernie or Schneider over this card? Most certainly. I think if I were to pick one of those options over this as an outfield utility or something of the latter, right? Mainly outfield utility, I think.
Kidneys, I think it's really counterintuitive when one of our listeners hear you say that you'd like less power. As when I was new to the game, I wanted to max out every category. I couldn't have enough of every single one. So hearing you say, I wish he had less power would have sounded really foreign to me back before the education that you've hammered into my head. For any new listeners there, for any listeners that aren't familiar with the phenomena that you're really referring to there, could you enlighten them a bit?
Yep. So I guess it's that time of stream again. So absolutely. So how contact in this game works is it's BAPIP plus power plus Ks. Now you're going, what is BAPIP? Well, BAPIP is basically when you hit the ball, how often is it going to be a ball in play? And basically, how often is it going to be a hit? And is really what it means in this context, right? So in this case, when you have a higher power, how the game calculates it is it actually takes away from how often your ball is going to be a ball in play that has a chance to be a hit. So I know that sounds really convoluted, but it's how the engine works. So the higher power you have, and this is why I was talking earlier about having, like a lower power, makes your and a good contact and avoid K, gives you a better chance to get a hit, because avoid K is your chance to make contact with the ball. And then if you think at contact is your chance to put a ball in, or a chance for a ball in play to be a hit, let's word it that way, right? And power will count against that. Now it's still good because home runs are a good thing, right? But if you're looking for a contact profile hitter, which I'm a big fan of, you don't want power, right? So
Now, would you say that we've seen the effects of too much power with a lot of the face of the franchise cards?
I think there are some cards in the game, if you took away power, they would be a better card. I don't think it's too many cards because power does outvalue BAPIP, technically, if we're looking at like just a spreadsheet vacuum standpoint, right? It does outvalue. So power does hold value. Power is not necessarily a bad thing. But just for a card that has low avoid Ks and a low contact, having a higher power is going to exaggerate the problem it already has of not having a good BAPIP and a good ability to hit the ball, right?
Perfect. All right, moving on. We've got Manny Ramirez. Manny Ramirez, a postseason hero. You know, when he was in the National League, he crushed my Cubs in one division series spectacularly. And I'm sure he's wrecked a lot of other fans' dreams in the American League when he was playing for the Red Sox. And this card here is a very impressive looking one. You know, you've got a lot of blue, especially in the verse left-hand pitching profile. And this looks to me like a card that we would have gushed over in our pre-face of the franchise days. I think this would have been your DH, your preferred DH in those days. Now, the versus right profile is a bit weaker, certainly playable way back when. As far as how well it can play now, that remains to be seen. As we look at the similarity scores, you have some hits here. So his verse lefty profile, which is really where his strength is, has a decent hit there with Ricky Henderson, who's OPSing 760 in the perfect league over the past 3 seasons. It's got Al Kaline there as well, 796. So those are pretty good numbers. His VR profile has a hit there with Rogers Hornsby, who struggles to the tune of a 644 in perfect league. So these would suggest to me that he's likely a VL bat only at the very highest levels. And then the range. The range is 47, which to me is an absolute non-starter. Manny should never spend an inning in the field, even with the 96 arm and the 90 error. So I think what you've got here is a DH that can't hit right-hand pitching in all likelihood. And I don't know how well those ratings come together versus left as to whether that can be a competitive bat in today's meta. What do you think?
Yes. So pre-FOTF, like you said, this would be, in my opinion, the go-to V-left card for a bat. Problem is, post-FOTF, we have K-Line, we have somebody mentioned in the chat, face of the franchise, Thomas, and there's a lot of bats like that now that just straight up are a better hitter than this card. If you look at the similarity score versus this card and K-Line is just straight up better across the board. And then he has 50 more points of range in the outfield defensively. And it's a little bit rough, right? To try and fit in this card. The closest bat value-wise to this card for me is about Roberto Clemente, not in similarity, but just like how he's going to play out and give you, runs and stuff, right? And him versus Clemente is better and just a better fielder, right? And it's going to be tough to justify running this card. It'll probably be a cheap card, though, because you need it to roll up into bigger missions. And so for a player on a budget, this could be a good DH option, because I could see this card dropping quite a lot, actually, because everybody's going to need to get this card to get Bumgarner and then to get the toppers and whatnot. So I actually think this card you're going to see a lot of in gold and below. And that excites me because I love Manny Ramirez as a player. So...
Yeah, I don't know if we'll see the supply that you're referring to there, I think that the mission structure here, and I assume, and I haven't looked at it yet, but I assume that Manny Ramirez is at the level where you need 7 of the 12 cards to unlock him. I think that's going to be a tall order for many people, and at least for the next couple cycles, I would expect the auction house prices to be cost prohibitive for someone on a budget, and for even some more high perfect point balance players here. So again, it's hard to speculate how the market's going to receive this, how fervently people are going to hold on to their pack pulls for cards within this set. But we've just got 12 pack cards, and many of them are at the diamond level. And so any one particular diamond pull is a rare occurrence. And I know Free Dave Brown was talking about the specific odds of whether, a specific card being pulled was actually less likely or more likely from a diamond to a perfect card. And I can't remember the results of it, but I want to say it was a pretty close calculation that the odds of a 100 Hornsby or whatever would be pretty similar to the odds of like a 97 David Cohn coming out. So I think that the supply on all these cards is going to be very short. And that's because the big pack rippers are going to more often than not hold on to those cards because they will have aspirations for whatever toppers come at the end of this. And then those that are not pulling them themselves are going to be actively pursuing them within the auction house. So I don't know that we'll see a ton of tier 2 missions completed for this set for some time. I think this is going to be a slow burn. I think it's going to be a while before we see Manny Ramirez's, before we see Madison Bumgarner's. I think it's going to take a long time.
So just a note, and the reason why I think this card could be cheap potentially is because you actually can get this card without a diamond and without one of the golds, right? So there is potential to get this card with an iron, a silver, a bronze, and 4 golds, right?
Okay.
So for 100 overall with a pretty great bat, that's... I understand these are new cards in the market, right? But for somebody that's not going to have any impact probably on the end game of Perfect Team, right? In the Perfect League and Diamond League, right? I don't know. I think there's potential here for him to be a budget option, right?
Yeah, I think that's really good insight, knowing that you don't need to pull or buy a diamond to get to that 7th card for the collection. Right. And then, that leads me to side a bit more on your side.
Yep.
All right, last but not least. Oh, and before we go on, this is someone's favorite card.
Yes,
so, Kiddies, why don't you tell us why this is your favorite?
So, I grew up, I live in Connecticut, which, if you don't know where my tiny state is in the world, it is right next to New York, and I live near New York City. So, everybody thought I was going to be a Yankees fan when I started liking baseball as a little kid. And because my family wouldn't let me be Mets fans because it's suffering, I'm sorry, Rich. It is... I had the red team and the pinstripe team playing on TV when I was 3, and my dad told me I could pick one of them, right? And I picked the red team because I liked the color red better, and I thought the pinstripes were icky. I was 3, what do you want me to do? So I came downstairs the next day. My dad pinned the score up on the wall, and the Red Sox had lost 13-1, I think it was. Everybody thought the Red Sox hadn't won in 85 years. I would quit. Well, the next year with 2004. And boy, did I look like a hero at 5 years old when the Red Sox won the World Series. And I was a genius to all my family and friends. So
yeah. You make me sick. Fan. You make
Manny
me sick.
Ramirez is one of my greatest childhood idols because, man, was he a fun player to watch.
Just walking into a World Series like that, you didn't earn it. You didn't suffer. You didn't go through a 1998 LDS where you get smoked by the Braves. You didn't go through a 2003 NLCS where you have the Bartman ball followed by the heartbreak of Game 7. You didn't have 2007 and 2008 breaking your heart. You just walked right into a championship. This is my problem with all you Zoomers. No, I'm just kidding. Moving on.
Fan, so I do suffer.
There you go. Moving on, we've got Madison Bumgarner. And this is our ultimate prize of the evening. This is your tier 3 SE from the set. You've got to collect 9 cards to unlock this guy here. And what you have is a very interesting card. I feel like we are now collecting a decent number of these similar type profiles. Spawn, Face of the Franchise, comes to mind as one. Glavin was similar to this, just way less stuff, way more control, and more splitty. But definitely an interesting card. And the control being where it is can counteract what could be interpreted as a slight dearth in stuff. And as we look at the similarity scores, we've got a lot of colors popping around here, a lot of hits. So the cards that are most similar to this are playing in the Perfect League. And I find it interesting that his first 4 comps on the general table are right-hand pitchers. So actually all 5 of them are. So that's probably not the best place to begin an analysis, because we know from past broadcasts just how splitty from a performance perspective the high levels are right now. So let's look at that versus lefty table. So our best versus lefty comp is Warren Spahn, Face of the Franchise, which has an excellent 3.14 FIP. However, this card is worse across the board than that card. Less stuff, less movement, and then, as Kidneys will tell you, less control, and which is very important because it's not just a couple points here, it's 6 points. So that's pretty significant. Then you've got Eddie Plank there. We'll skip over Mathewson because he's a right-hand pitcher. You've got Eddie Plank there. This card has less stuff, less movement. So it's going to be worse versus lefties than that one. And then the Rogers card doesn't have a hit. So I think what you're looking at here is probably a card versus left that's going to settle closer to 3.5 on the FIP, maybe 3.4 on the FIP, than that Warren Spahn excellent number of 3.14. And then as you look at his versus righties table, our closest hit here is Rube Marquard, if I've got the pronunciation of that name right. And the FIP there is not one that you love to see. So it's a 4.95 FIP, albeit not the hugest sample in the world. And Madison Bumgarner is slightly better than Rube, with 1 more stuff, 2 more control. So you'd expect at least slightly better results. But I see a card that could be difficult to lock in load as a starting pitcher, because in the current meta, you're going to face 7 right-hand batters. And those right-hand batters are going to be Willie Mays, and they're going to be Hank Aaron. And they're going to be a lot of guys who are going to be able to do a lot of damage against a pitcher with this profile. But what do you think?
Yeah, that's my issue with this card, is the 83 movement versus right-handed batters, right? And that's his weakness, is he's going to be home run prone versus his opposite side, which is what you're going to run into a lot in Perfect League, right? Which is what we're looking at for the competition for this card. And so how do you avoid that? Is this... do you play this as a follower to a right-handed opener, right? And I think that's probably the best use of this card, because when I run my metrics on him, I think he comes out as your 4th or 5th best left-handed starter. So I think unless we're going for pure lefty power in a rotation, if you're going full lefties, right, and you want to try and overpower somebody, this is an excellent bullpen piece, and probably a good follower. And that's probably where I would leave it for highest level. Now, if you're in Diamond or wherever, this card will blow people out of the water, right? It'll be great. But when we're talking Perfect League like we are right now, right, I think it's probably follower is where you're going to be able to hide its weakness the best.
So what card do you see this displacing in a Perfect League bullpen? Would this be the card that finally boots your Randy Johnson, Eddie Plank to your reserves? Or what do you have in mind with Bumgarner when you say you put him in the pen? And let's assume, for the sake of argument here, that you're not going to be able to actively manage and get him in that follower role, every 5th or 6th day.
That's an excellent question, one that I didn't entirely think about. And I think the answer, if people are still running him, and I'm not 100% on this, are people still running Hubble right now in the pen?
Hubble is still around. Hubble's challenge is that he's not quite good enough to be an every 5th day starter anymore, and he's got those extreme reverse splits.
Yep.
So if you throw him in the bullpen, your AI coach is going to trot him out there against a left-hand batter. Yep. So his splits are acceptable against each side, but in the pantheon of lefties, the formula seems to be for just about all of them is incredible FIP versus their same side, and just horribly problematic FIP against the right-hand side. So it's just a matter of what you want. Like, do you want a pen arm that's going to come in there and basically be kind of average against both sides? Or do you want one that's going to come in there and if they have 2 or 3 left-handed batters stacked up together, are going to have the opportunity to dominate them? So I feel like Hubble's place in the meta is on somewhat shaky ground right now, because if you're not using him as an opener and to knife through, 3, 4, 5, and I guess I shouldn't say knife through because he's not really dominating, but to get through some right-hand batters before you flip the script and throw in a right-handed pitching follower, I'm not sure where he fits in all that well. And there are not a lot of teams in the perfect league experiencing a lot of success trotting out Hubble regularly right now.
Yes, I think this is a card we're going to have to wait and see on, because I'm looking at my numbers right now. He is so close to Randy Johnson. I don't think I can make that call in good faith whether he's better or not. It'd be something, I don't know the exact pen boost this card's going to get. If somebody in chat already has them, which I don't think is probably possible at this point, I would love to know once we know the pen boost this card gets, and I can run some more numbers, and we see the stats coming out of him in Perfect League. We'll probably, get a better grasp on it, and maybe we can come back and run some numbers and talk about it more then. But it's really close with him and RJ, I think, for a pen slot right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's really just two different choices for two different style managers. So yep. RJ's control is going to be less against both sides. RJ's movement is going to be less versus left-hand batting. But RJ is going to have significantly more stuff in the pen. Whereas yep. even if Madison Bumgarner gets a good pen boost, which he shouldn't get anything crazy from the pitch values we see in front of us here, the stuff is going to be significantly less than Randy. So what's more important to you as a team builder? Someone who's not going to get themselves into trouble with walks, someone who's not going to give up the long ball to a left-handed batter, or someone who could come in and strike out the side. So I think that there's an element of choice in there. I wouldn't say that one is just generally better than the other. All right, time for a bonus card. So nobody has this card yet, if my information is correct, but someone will soon. I can't recall which tournament it is, but you should definitely seek it out because it's an interesting card that's coming out that we've got the ratings on. It's Van Mungo. There is a 97 Van Mungo in the game, so this will be a peak Van Mungo and 100 rated card. And it's an interesting profile. So it is a right-hand pitcher, and it's also a starter. So the conversation about pen boost is going to come back up in a moment's time, I'm sure. And the pitch values are excellent. 3 pitches only. All of them over 100. So you're going to be getting some sort of goofy Walter Johnson-like pen boost out of Van Mungo here. Now, there's always a catch. There's always something that's not great. And with Van Mungo, it's the control. He's worse than your Bob Feller. He's worse than your Jose Fernandez. I think slightly better than your Gooden. But he's at 76 versus left and 75 versus right. And so this card here is going to be an awesome test case in my mind. Like, how well can just crazy stuff cover for a super weakness with control? And I think what you'll end up seeing is off the charts K per 9 to go with some really hideous walks per 9. And as you look at the similarity scores, it's all the familiar subjects that you'd think. All the same people that you would think he would profile close to. You've got your Feller, your Page, your Gooden, Jose Fernandez, guys with crazy stuff, and then some suspect movement and control. Now, if you look at the stuff column on the similarity table, he's outstuffing just about everyone on the back of the card rating, with the exception of Feller versus Wright. So basically, he's got more stuff than anyone who profiles similarly than him with the exception of Feller versus Wright. So that's going to be pretty significant. However, as you do look at that versus righty profile, which is going to be the most relevant of all the profiles because you're going to put him in the pen, he is across the board worse than Feller. Now, Feller does have an excellent perfect league FIP, and the comp right above Feller, which is Kerry Wood, albeit on a much smaller sample, does have a pretty good FIP in perfect league as well, and this card is better across the board. So I think this is an interesting card and one that I think would be difficult to go on the record and say exactly what you think is going to happen with it. But what do you think?
Well, the issue is, right, like we touched on, we don't know the stuff boost. Once we know the stuff boost, how high is it going to be? Does it depend on the velocity, the pitches, all that kind of stuff. He has a one less pitch than Feller, but he's got lower velocity, so I'm not entirely sure what that comes out to. I think velocity factors onto that. I think that's something a friend of mine was telling me lately. But across the board, he is weaker than Feller v. Wright. He's got reverse splits, which makes him a little bit weaker coming out of the bullpen. We just talked about that with Hubble, right? So he's in an interesting place. If he comes out with the Walter Johnson stuff boost, this card's a monster, right? He's going to be putting up numbers probably like we've never seen before out of the bullpen, So it's very fascinating to me. There's probably not a whole lot more I can add to this conversation just because I'm really curious to see where he lands. But no doubt it's a good card. No doubt if you win this card in the tournament coming up, you're going to play him, right? I mean, he's just really good.
Yeah, it's one of those cards that has reverse splits that you wish didn't have reverse splits. If you could trade his VR for his VL, you'd do it in a heartbeat.
Yep.
Because when you're in the pen, you're going to be facing more same side batters than you're going to be facing opposite. So you're just leaving a lot on the table there by having those 5 points of movement, the 1 point of control, and the 9 of stuff going on the wrong side of the table.
Yep.
All right, so there's the set. We got 12 cards and 3 SCs that go on top of them. They're definitely going to be highly sought after. We've talked a little bit about what we expect the market to be like. I do think that this is going to induce some pretty significant pack ripping, which we haven't had in a long time, which I think in general is a good thing. And I think it makes the Fire Pulse channel a lot more interesting because basically any of these could qualify as a Fire Pull, and we don't need to see the same old historical diamonds that we've seen in that channel for years, really lighting it up. So I am excited to follow this, and even more excited to see how quickly we start to see, Madison Bumgarner's and Manny Ramirez's being redeemed. I think it could be some time, but who knows? With the volume of pack ripping out there and with the stacks of perfect points that some people have accumulated through the face of the franchise and have been more or less sitting on, it could happen sooner rather than later. So moving on, and one thing that we want to be cognizant of is that we're taking you guys on a journey here that's kind of data heavy. We're digging into spreadsheets. We're looking at similarity tables. We're talking about baseball players. We're really grinding numbers. So what we wanted to do is just kind of infuse a little moment to catch our breath, a little moment to have a little bit of fun before we move on to the second half when we get into what we believe are the perfect rosters. So without further ado, let's play our favorite game show, OK Boomer, OK Zoomer. And the concept here is I'm going to share with Kidneys, our resident Zoomer, 3 things from the 90s. And he's going to need to figure out what they are. He's going to try his hand to figure out what these things even are. And then what I'm going to have to do is look at one of his Zoomer memes and try to make sense of it. So let's get started. So, Mr. Zoomer, what are these?
So I actually know this one. I knew this one before I cheated, and I saw it by accident in the slides. But these, if I believe, are called Pogs. And I believe they are what the name of the emote PogChamp comes from. The guy got his name from being the champion of playing Pogs, if I know my lore correctly.
So it is Pogs, and I have always wondered why Zoomers put Pog into a champ, or what the emote PogChamp even meant. So you're actually teaching me some here. I think you get some bonus points for not only identifying it, but answering a question that I had. But this was a silly game that was played in the 90s. I played for a short bit as a kid with my younger brothers, where you stack up a bunch of crappy little cardboard discs. You throw a slammer off of it, and then based on which ones land up or land down, you get to keep some. It was a really silly little phase that didn't last all that long, but I'm very impressed that you were able to identify it. So moving on. Now, what incredible 90s TV show is this the ultimate final scene from?
I mean, I'm
no
young,
spoilers in the chat, Dish. Don't look in the chat, kidneys.
but I mean, I know the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, so I've heard that.
Oh, wow! I'm surprised. Have you seen that show, or have you just seen
the show? But I mean, I know in West Philadelphia, born and raised. So,
wow, 2 for 2. Who could have guessed? Kidneys coming out really strong tonight. The last test for you. What band released their hit song "Mbop"?
Oh, I have no idea. I know absolutely nothing about 90s music.
For the record, those are 3 boys on the screen.
Okay. I know nothing about 3 redheads on my screen.
All right. Well, you have to settle for 2 for 3, but that's still very well done. The band was called Hanson.
Oh, okay.
I don't know that they ever had another song that made any sort of dent.
Oh, I know the song now, but I don't know the band. Not aware of them.
Would you care to sing it for us?
No, I am not singing for you.
Okay. All right, moving on. So I have not seen this meme yet, and I'm more than a little nervous, but let's unveil it and then try to walk through what it is. So Kidney's face is blocking some of the text here. It says, "It's free real estate." It's got the Google Chrome icon over a face that I don't recognize. So basically, it's like every Zoomer meme I've ever bumped into that has no comedic value on its surface and requires a thorough and deep explanation. Oh boy, I don't even know where to start with this. It's free real estate. Google Chrome. I think I'm going to have to toss in the towel and yield to you this week. Explain this meme to the crowd.
So it's free real estate is actually a pretty old meme coming from 2009, a Tim and Eric sketch where they did a commercial and called Presidents, and the actors claim it was a free house for every person is what they were giving out. And they just said, come on, guys, it's free real estate, right? And it became a meme, blew up, and so it just be used. So the meme in the photo is referring specifically to what Google Chrome does to your computer, where your RAM is its free real estate and how it just eats away at your computer's memory. If you ever want to know what's slowing down your computer, do a little Control-Shift-Escape, open your task manager, and you'll see that Google Chrome has eaten all of your RAM.
Wow. Learn something new every day. Well done. So I'll ask my viewers here, if you can help me stump Kidneys in the future, please DM me things from the 90s to throw at him, because I'm a little embarrassed here that he went 2 for 3 and did so pretty easily. And I didn't even know where to start. All right, so that concludes OK Boomer, OK Zoomer until next week. And that's going to transition us into DRC and Kidneys perfect teams in perfect team. So on every stream we've done, we've said over and over again, oh, this card won't dent the meta. This card would have played before face of the franchise. This card, that card, it's short of what it needs to be, or it's going to just come up short. The defense isn't good enough. So what is a good card? What is a card that fits the meta? What are the perfect teams? So there are some rules as we did this exercise. First rule, you have all the cards. So no card within the perfect team universe is off limits. Second rule, you play in a neutral home park. So this is important because team building within a non-neutral park can have very real impacts on the team that you built. And the optimal team drastically shifts if you're running a very right-hand favored park, a very left-hand favored park, even a very extra base hit favored park, or a homer nerf park. So for this exercise, we looked at neutral home parks. And then lastly, you're actually trying to win. You're not doing some kind of free Dave Brown theme team in quotes, that's guaranteed to get you relegated. So with the rules out of the way, let's jump in. So here's our lineup cards, and these are not set in batting order. We're going position by position. Perhaps we'll have some time to comment on batting order when we're done. And we'll start with catcher. Oh, we'll start with our pictures, actually. So at catcher, I am going ahead with Mauer and Campy. Mauer is really the only bat that I see producing value VR. You have some legacy Yogi Berra SEs still hanging around, but really Mauer is the bat. You know, if you're someone that doesn't hold catcher defense as gospel, then I think Mauer is the play here. If you are, then obviously you're going to be going with an Ivan Rodriguez or a Roy Campanella, or maybe there's even some SE benches running around there. But I think that Mauer's defense is acceptable for the first 7 innings of a game until you get a lead. And then I'm more than happy to bring in Campanella, who I find as the most valuable bat, combined with a very good glove versus left. And I see that Kidneys has mirrored me here, but I'll give you a second to comment on what drove you to that decision.
Yeah, I mean, for me, these are the best catchers in the game. The real close question for me is, do I want Pudge in my team? And I decided, as we'll see when we go along, to go with a more offensive-heavy lineup than most people know me for. Most people know me for my defensive-built teams. But when I have an unlimited budget, I decided to splurge a little bit and build a more fun team. So I think this team's going to have a much bigger dent in my opponent's lineups. And I decided to go with a bigger bat at catcher and Campanella over Pudge.
Very good. Moving on. So at first base, we finally have a deviation. So I'm going Connor versus left, and I'm going Hornsby versus right. You, on the other hand, are going Connor versus left and Anson versus right. So from my perspective here, Connor is the play versus right. I mean, your competition here is George Brett or Musial, and Connor, to me, has just been way more consistent and someone who is driving a certain statistic that I love to have in my lineup, and that's also sometimes hard to find in the perfect team universe, and that statistic is on base percentage. And the other thing I love about Connor is if you're going to a park that is favored for left-hand batters, you can start him versus left as well. He is not a train wreck when it comes to facing left-hand starting pitching. So I can very easily move Hornsby and start Connor as an additional left-hand bat if the situation calls for it. If I'm facing a Hubble, if I'm in one of those parks that I just referenced. So that all makes me love Connor to the point where he's basically a mainstay on my team. Now Hornsby is just about the best bat in the game versus left-hand pitching. The glove is what's suspect. And as you'll see as my lineup comes together here, I like his fit best at first base and filling in with better defense around him. Now, Kidneys, why don't you walk us through why you went Connor Anson?
So I went Connor Anson for a few reasons. First off, Connor over Musial, like you touched upon. I think Connor is the more consistent bat. He's the better on base bat. He's got one of the highest avoid Ks in the game, so he's just such a great addition to any lineup v right. And then Anson, I love Anson as a card, but I also think Anson is so underutilized with flexibility. I know you posted a stat in a Discord I'm in with you that there was only 2 right-handed batters, I think it was, that had a positive rating versus right-handed pitching. Was that what it was, right?
Yeah,
and it was
positive
Anson
bat value, yeah.
Was that correct, Anson and Jackie?
That's correct.
Right. And I think Anson's flexibility as a hitter, even if I'm not playing him V left as a bench bat or as somebody I can sub into the lineup, right, somewhere else, you can even flex the third base in an emergency, right? Just a really solid bat overall. And I really like him as a first baseman. So
moving on, we've got second baseman now. And what I've done is I've highlighted when one of us has chosen a same side bat for a position. Because as we've talked about with streams in the past, in today's Perfect Team universe, same side hitters are really struggling. So let's look at mine. I've got Jackie VR and I've got Larkin VL. And so what drives me to Jackie here is to the point that you literally just made. There are very few positive bat value right-hand batters in the game versus right-hand pitching, and Jackie just happens to be one of them. Jackie's got very neutral splits in terms of his produced statistics, not just his backup card ratings, which I love having a bat versus right that can contribute and break up that long string of left-hand batters. So I love Jackie there. Don't love the defense at second base, but I do think that we've entered a new chapter in the game cycle where second base defense is actually less important because you have a lot of different owners prioritizing bat, making the impact of you having a similar bat at that position less. You're getting dinged less than an era where we saw only Aussies and only Applings and only Pop Lloyds at the position. Now, versus left, I just really love that Larkin profile. There's not a ton of perfect league stats on him, so this could very well change as I get more and more time running him. But I love the profile. I love the defense. Again, he's giving a lot better defense than Hornsby would at second base while not giving up a ton of bat. As we'll get to before this exercise is over, it's hard to find middle infield bats that you don't have to give up a ton of glove for, and Larkin just happens to be one for me. Now, you went Jackie both sides. Walk us through why.
So kind of what you're touching on with relatively the level of defensive play has dropped as we've shifted to a more offensive heavy meta, which means you won't get punished as much for running a more offensive heavy lineup. And that's something you'll probably see on both of our teams are very low defensive standards than what you would have seen a month, 2 months ago, right? And so Jackie at second base for me is just something I feel that the bat overvalues the glove so much so that I can get away with running him both sides, which is something that I would have never considered. I mean, if you know me, you know I've been probably the biggest or one of the biggest proponents of Jackie at third base. Jackie doesn't play second base for forever now, and I think it's finally time that Jackie can go back to second base just because of the meta shift. I think Larkin's an excellent choice, though. I love Larkin as a card. I've been running him myself just because I don't own Jackie. And he's been putting up some fantastic numbers. So,
shortstop. I've got Pop Lloyd versus right-hand pitching, and I've got Ripken versus left. And you've got Ripken on both sides here. So Ripken being your second same-side bat in your VR lineup. So for me, this is not really a flag being planted. I am not here to tell you guys that Pop Lloyd is the answer at shortstop versus right, and Ripken is the answer versus left. What I'm here to tell you is that that's who I'm going to start a season with. I'm going to give Pop some run. I'm going to give Ripken some run. And I'm going to see what type of a version of that card I get. I'll probably check in around 100 plate appearances or so. And if it's not going well, I feel as though those right behind these, so for Pop, the first sub that I would throw in there is Ozzy. And then for Ripken, the first sub I'd throw in there is Yount. I'm going to try a different hand. Getting production out of shortstops in Perfect League right now is so difficult. Nobody hits anything. And it drives me crazy to see those sub 600, even at times sub 500 OPSs. But you do still, in my opinion, you do still need to have a big glove there. And so that's why I've got Pop Lloyd, which has that second best range within the meta. And then you've got Ripken, whose strong arm rating and strong overall defense makes up for what is a slightly shorter range on him. Walk us through your decision to have Ripken going both ways.
So this is probably the weirdest decision on my team and one that I've been advocating for I think, since Ripken came out now. And I know a lot of people don't agree with it. But the reason I just think Ripken is probably your second No, your third best defensive shortstop. I think it goes Ozzy, then Yount, then Ripken. And the reason I think Ripken is the one that plays is his bat v left is an end game bat. And I don't think there's another shortstop that's bat v right is good enough for me to justify A lineup slot, or B, platooning Ripken's bat. And so I think it's just worth leaving Ripken in the lineup both slides. It makes my lineup less platoon heavy. It makes my lineup less weak to, like, getting pseudoed or, somebody opening on me, right? Something like that. And I just think overall Ripken is the best value I can get at shortstop.
Yeah, so I think this might be our first opportunity to have an observed statistics versus mathematical regression battle. Because I hear you say something like Ripken is an end game bat versus left. And when I saw the back of the card ratings on card drop night, when we did that, I think that was our first version of this stream, I was right there with you. I said this card is going to manhandle lefties. And that's just not happening. That is not happening in the Perfect League statistics. I can't give you a great answer as to why the production isn't there, but he's atrocious versus right, as we expected, and he's not crushing lefties. And so that has him relegated to platoon status for me, and platoon status that is really on shaky ground, because if he's got a rough start to the season, I'm not going to hesitate to throw Yount in there and try to catch a hot hand.
So I think that catching the hot hand isn't a bad idea, but it's a philosophy that I don't personally believe in. Where I am we know this because I know we've gone back and forth on this before, but for the viewers, I am a very, the game isn't a hot-handed approach. It's a very math-oriented approach, right? And, you can roll your dice and you can get lucky, but for me, it's, overall, right, looking at it long-term, Ripken is going to be my best dice roll over Yount or over Ozzy or Pop offensively. And I think that he just outweighs them on an overall long-term scale. And so I don't believe riding the short-term.
Yeah, I think that's a great debate over the, hot hand versus just riding it out. I think that's probably something that we can save for a later stream, and one that honestly I'm not entirely sure which camp is correct. I know how I manage my team, which currently I do take the hot hand approach, and if I feel as though I've got a bad, quote unquote roll of someone and really they're irredeemable, I won't hesitate to plop them out after a decent sample size. But I think that that would be a great discussion to save for a later time. So moving on, we've got third base. And we've got Rogers Hornsby for me, VR, and then Jackie, VL. So Hornsby is my second same side bat. And then you've got Hornsby both ways. And so Hornsby makes your third same side bat in your VR lineup. So for me here, as I was building my lineup, I was trying to, for my same side bats, pick those at the very top of the production leaderboard. So as we've already talked about a couple times, it's difficult to find righties that hit righties. And Jackie and Hornsby are right at the top of the list of the best that do so. So as I'm building a lineup, I want lefties that crush righties, and then I want righties that hold their own. And I want righties that not only hold their own, but when a reliever comes in later to clean up all these lefties, and someone's going to go through, let's say they face Mauer and then Connor, and then Hornsby's right after, and that's their third batter, I want a batter that can punish them. And that's exactly what Hornsby is. Hornsby is absolutely lethal versus left-hand pitching, and so I'm happy to start him in my versus right lineup at third base. Now, my versus left lineup skews slightly more defensive, and so I've got Jackie there. And Jackie is interesting in that he does not kill left-hand pitching. He's good. He is better versus left-hand pitching than he is versus right, but he's not that concept that I was talking about with Hornsby, where you kind of live with a slightly below water bat value for Hornsby for that late game high leverage payoff when he crushes a left-handed reliever. With Jackie, you're just kind of getting even keel production versus right-hand pitching and versus left, and I think that's not a bad thing to have in your lineup as well. So why don't you walk us through Rogers Hornsby going both ways?
I mean, it's really just our defensive preferences, right, at the end of the day, because You chose to shift Jackie to third to get a bit better out of your defense while putting Hornsby at first base, free left. So you get a better of a defensive spread on the left-handed side, while I chose for a more aggressive spread by taking Anson over Larkin. So, yeah, what it is. I mean, we ended up both playing Jackie and Hornsby both sides. I don't know how you couldn't at this point. I think both are must-have, must-run for any endgame team. I mean, Hornsby's bat overall is uncontestable that you have to run him, I think, at this point in the game from what we've seen coming out of him. I think the only person that competes with him really is Cobb, right?
So let's get to left field here. We've got Tris Speaker for me, VR, and then it looks like my late game change of Hank Aaron to Ricky Henderson didn't take here. So I've got Aaron. I can defend that as well. And then you've got Tris Speaker versus right, and then DiMaggio versus left. So for me, Tris Speaker is kind of like the OG superstar, and his production is actually getting better. His last week in Perfect League was better than the 3 weeks before it. Now, that's a phenomena that I don't have the smoking gun explanation for you for why that's happening. Perhaps it's just he's being deployed now almost predominantly or almost exclusively in platoons. But Tris Speaker is still a monster card to have in your lineup. He's going to hit really well. He's got the wheels to really be a menace on the base paths. And while his defense has been passed by many other cards you could put in this spot, I think 90 range is still more than acceptable in your least important corner, which is left field. And for the VL here, I am going to talk to Ricky, because the reason that I had to switch from Hank to Ricky was for roster size. So I like to have a 12-man pitching staff. So your 5 starters and then 7 relievers. And that's why I had to cut Hank Aaron out and put Ricky in to left field instead of just being a D-sub and a pinch runner. And the reason I picked Ricky here is not because he's a better bat than Aaron. He's not. Hank Aaron puts up significantly better statistics versus left-hand pitching, but Ricky is a different type of Swiss Army knife. You know, Ricky gives you decent on-base percentage versus left. He's going to steal a ton of bases. When you're facing a right-hand pitcher and he's not in the lineup, which will be more often than not, he's going to be that late game replacement that can really win you a game. Come in as a pinch runner for someone like a Roger Connor or Joe Mauer, take a base, and then score on a single. Or he's just going to be a D-sub. He's going to be significantly better than Tris Speaker in left field. So Ricky, despite not being the hitter that Aaron is, I think the sum of the parts there and the sum of the ways that he can help you win games makes him the better ad in left field than someone who is going to hit significantly better. I feel comfortable with the other right-hand bats I already have in this lineup with Larkin, Ripken, Hornsby, that I don't need that production out of Aaron. Now, you went Speaker and DiMaggio. Walk us through what made you go that route.
So it's close between DiMaggio and Ricky for me. I just think with how I like to build my lineups, I tend to often forgo power too much. And so I wanted another bigger bat in my lineup than picking someone a la Ricky Henderson. And DiMaggio isn't too big of a sacrifice defensively rather than Ricky. If anything, I might have gone K-Line, I think, as well, was somebody I was looking at a lot. I think Speaker, like you were talking about, is a no-brainer. He's just been performing out of this world recently, and he's just seems to have come back as a staple, which is really cool. I like that Connor and Speaker have stuck around for so long as such great cards. And, yeah, DiMaggio is probably, in my opinion, the thing I'm probably least sold on in my lineup. If you wanted to flex it, like some people in the chat, a lot of people are saying, why not Cobb in left field? Because I feel like if I were to replace Cobb in my lineup with somebody, I would be replacing Cobb with an outfielder, and they would just be in my outfield anyway over Cobb. So I'm not really sold on that anyway.
All right, moving on. We've got center field here, and I'm actually going to ditch our webcam so that we can see everything. Although I'm sure people will miss our smiling faces. So I've got a maze each way. So Mays is now my third same side bat in my VR lineup, and you've got Griffey Mays. Griffey obviously facing right and Mays facing left. So the reason that I went Mays here is because I feel like even though he doesn't have the defense of Griffey, I feel more comfortable with him in my lineup. So his versus right stats are not great. And depending on the season, depending on the ballpark, depending on the copy of the card, Griffey does sometimes beat Mays v right. But v left is no question. Mays absolutely crushes Griffey v left. And so as we're making our lineups, we can't just be thinking about that starting pitcher. That starting pitcher is not going to be in there forever. And when a reliever comes in and they happen to change handedness, again, I want my same side batters in my lineup to be able to absolutely crush them. And while Mays' offensive statistics have come down some since he was dropped as the it card in the game, he's still very, very productive versus left-hand pitching. And so now as my third same side batter, and spoiler alert, that will be my last same side batter for my VR lineup, I feel very comfortable that when a bullpen pitcher comes in to face my heavy left-hand lineup, they're going to end up having to face one of my right-hand batters, and I really like my chances of Jackie, Hornsby, or Willie Mays doing some damage against them. But why don't you walk us through why you went Griffey Mays?
So the reason I went Griffey Mays is I have a lineup spot, and I actually am just really high personally on center field defense. I think it's really undersold in general right now, and I feel like a lot of people are undervaluing Griffey in center field because he actually, just his advantage over Mays, 7 points is quite a lot in my opinion. And I think his defensive utility, while being break even, if not better in the bat, sacrificing like you were talking about, you do lose a lot of potential V left, and that's going to be his weakness. But I had a slot in my lineup, I had a slot on the bench, and I had the option to play another lefty v right. So I was just looking at it, and I felt like Griffey was a good fit for what I was building.
Very good. So let's go to right field now. We've both got Gwynn across the board. Maybe the least surprising of all of our lineup selections here. For me, Gwynn is just that dude. He's an incredible hitter. He's going to hit righties. He's going to hit lefties. And then depending on the stretch, you could end up with a mega Gwynn. And I've got one of those going in Perfect League right now. If I could pull up the stats right now, I would. But as of this morning, and here we are on Thursday, I want to say I last checked it around 5 or 6 p.m., he was batting .387 in Perfect League. So this is a card that just really does a lot and can do it against both sides. Great contact ratings, great avoid K, and the defense, you don't pay for the defense. Decent range. He's not the best right fielder in the game, but when you look at what he brings you with the bat, and he's not a zero on the base paths either. For me, this was the easiest decision of the entire exercise.
Yeah, without a question, right? We were talking about well-rounded cards. Like, you have to have Hornsby, you have to have Jackie, even Connor. I would argue with people as a must over Musial, but I think there's no question when it comes to Gwynn, has to be somewhere in your lineup right now. He's just such a consistent card, such a powerful card. He plays great defense. He's fast, and he's just got such a perfect profile, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things that I would want someone to take out of this exercise is understanding why you do want same-side batters in a given lineup. There's really two reasons. There's a reason that I've talked about most during this conversation, which is for later in the game, in those high leverage spots, when there's a bullpen pitcher that comes in that is really weak versus their offhand and has to face their third batter because they can't leave the game. Or maybe someone doesn't have their AI tuned to get them out of the game. You're going to want that opposite hand batter to really feast in that moment. But the other thing is to discourage the owners you're going against doing pseudo starters. And so while statistically, there's likely an argument to be made to load up your VR lineup with nothing but left-hand bats. I mean, you could make that argument. You could look at extracted statistics from Perfect League and likely find 9 left-handed batters that are all better than any same-side righty that you throw in there. But all you're going to do then is welcome someone to throw a righty for 3 batters and then follow them with David Price for a long relief follower appearance. And then get David Price running 20 consecutive batters versus left-handed, which he's going to dominate 8 times out of 10. So what you need to do is not just think about the late game when the handedness is going to switch with the bullpen, but also think about how your opponents are going to plan for you. They're going to look at their schedule. They're going to see you coming. They're going to look at your lineup and say, okay, how do I beat this guy? And if you have a vulnerability, like an over-platooned lineup, an active manager that knows what they're doing is going to take advantage of that every time. And so that's why you do run, that's the second reason you run same-side hitters, so that you don't look as appetizing to someone that has that tool in their tool belt.
Yep, absolutely. And I think looking at my lineup, the weakness with my lineup is you run a left-handed opener and you pseudo a right-handed pitcher, as a follower, right? And that would be probably the weakest spot in my lineup for sure.
Next, we've got DH, and no high drama here. We both go Cobb both ways, and it's for a lot of the reasons that I've talked about. Versus right, he's the best hitter in the game. There's nobody that you want up in a big spot more than Cobb, in my opinion. Absolute great hitter. Another one of those guys like Tris Speaker that can be just a devil on the bases as well. And then versus left, he's my second same side hitter versus left. And again, remember what I try to do with my same side hitters. I try to get guys in there that when the handedness switches, they can really cause a lot of damage. And that's exactly what Gwynn and Cobb can do. So later in the game, when they get to face a right-handed middle reliever, right-handed closer, they can win the game for me. And so Cobb's not difficult to argue for that because he's just so good across the board. And I think his bat value this last season even crept above water VL, but absolute monster VR.
I mean, my opinion, best bat in the game, right? Just even if you can, he's not the best bat V left, but just overall because he's so good V right. Bat pip off the charts, contact off the charts, just fantastic. The fact that a non-power hitter can be your DH and be everyone's DH consistently just elaborates to the strength of the card, right? He's just an incredible overall bat and a must-have for any team that can afford him.
Awesome. So let's move to our bench. And this is where Ricky shows up. So this is just a slide deck error for me. But you see Hank Aaron turn into Ricky right here. And then from a bench perspective, you and I both have only one guy, not in a particular starting lineup, with the same role. So we both have Luke Appling as a defensive substitute. And let me espouse my praise for Luke Appling here. So Appling is great because he's got great range. So he's 102, which is more than most of the meta guys you see in the middle infield. Although we've added some that can break him with Robin Yount now. But he gets on base. He's a right-hand hitter that gets on base versus right-hand pitching and plays great defense. Like, that is a unicorn. If I was going to a park that was very heavily favored for right-hand batters, I'm going to swap him in for Pop and not even think twice about it. There are no right-hand batters that get on base versus right-hand pitching as good as he does in the middle infield. And then VL, he's not great VL, but he's still a right-hand batter. So he's facing pitchers that are on their weak side. And if he needs to sub in for a tired Jackie or a tired Hornsby, he can do that. And it won't be a problem. And he's got that off-the-charts walk rating. So maybe he picks up another couple of walks in that game there. So he's coming in late when I've got the lead. And I believe I bring him in for Hornsby, move Jackie to third, and put Appling at second. And then VL he'll just go and replace Jackie at third. And he's just a great asset to have on the team.
So I see Mr. Walnut is asking an excellent question. Why not Yount? And the reason I was very close to Yount for Sapling, but the reason why I went Appling over Yount is because I needed somebody I could play around the entire infield who also could hit right-handed pitching as a righty. And I don't trust Yount's hitting against right-handed pitching. Yount doesn't hit well enough for me to be considered a hitter at the highest level. And I think Appling hits, right? So the fact that Appling can hit right-handed pitching as well as play defense around the infield is just what I needed for a defensive player.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Yount doesn't hit. He doesn't hit VL. He doesn't hit VR. Now, you can get a hot Yount, and you can pick up a 200 to 250 plate appearance stretch where he's a positive bat value, but that's the exception and not the rule. So Yount to me, again, and I referenced him earlier, if Ripken struggles for me, then Yount is my first card that I pull. He goes in there and is that VL shortstop. So Yount is not some ne'er-do-well that needs to be quick sold, but he doesn't belong on this team in that first iteration. He's a reserve guy that I'm going to pull in when Ripken's not getting it done.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, overall, pretty similar lineups, which I think is to be expected. There's some differences, I think, pretty well articulated between the two of us. You have a slightly more defensive approach than I took, except for in center field, where you chose to go for a more balanced bat approach. I think if I could look back, I would like to squeeze maybe one more lefty into my left-handed side somewhere. Not sure entirely who that would be, but that would probably be my only complaint.
Yeah, and going back to that, again, you have to play in the ballparks that are on your schedule. And so as we look at how this lineup would change if I'm playing in a super powerful lefty park, Connor's going to go to first instead of Hornsby. I'll move Hornsby to second and sit Larkin. And Tris Speaker is going to go to left instead of Ricky. And Connor and Speaker both are good enough versus left. They are negative bat value, but it's not significantly negative. And the other thing we know about games that are started by left-hand starting pitching is that the percentage of plate appearances from those games that stay left-hand pitching is actually not all that high. So even though I'm going to go into that game in that park with, at that point, it would be 4 lefties, at some point, those batters are going to face right-hand pitching. And so it's not like you're getting punished all game long. So I would definitely do that. And then for my VR lineup, if I end up in a park that's very heavy for right-hand bats, depending on who's hot at the time, I might go Campanella over Mauer. I wouldn't mind getting Ripken same side there, just like you have. Actually, I just sub Appling for Pop at that point and make those changes there. Nothing's going to get me to pull Connor, Speaker, Gwynn, or Cobb out of my VR lineup, no matter what park I'm in. All right, any closing thoughts, Kidney?
I think I pretty much touched on it all that I'd like to touch on. Yeah, I think that's it.
Awesome. So that's going to conclude for us tonight. I know we went a bit longer because we wanted to infuse the new segment about our dream teams. Let me go ahead and pop up our cams real quick. There we go. I think it was a fun exercise, and honestly, I felt like it was a needed one because we talk a lot on these streams of like, this card's not enough, that card's not enough defense, not enough power, too much this, too much that it was really worthwhile to go through and say, okay, what is the meta? What are the cards that people should be targeting? What are the cards that make up a balanced lineup? And what does a balanced lineup even look like? What should I be trying to put together to cover potential strategies someone can use against me, and also to be in consideration of not just who the starting pitcher is, but what's going to be happening later in the game when the bullpen gets involved. So I think that was a good exercise, and I'm glad that we did it. We will be back next week. So next week will be week 2 in the playoff series. We'll have 3 more special edition cards to analyze. We'll have 12 more regular cards to analyze. And then we'll also have a lot more information. So we'll be able to see and say what happened this week. With the cards that drop, what does the market look like? What do the redemption rates look like? How are Perfect Team managers going about trying to complete these missions? So that'll be interesting to kind of track the progress that way. But Kidneys, thank you for your time. Thank you for your insight as always. Any parting thoughts for the crowd?
Not really. It's just a great stream as always. Love the new missions. Excited to see how they build up. Excited to see the toppers. Just looking forward to it. Guys, if you haven't already and you're new here, drop the RCL follow. If you have the money you'd like to do so, you can always subscribe to the channel. I'd love to see that. I'm just excited to have you here. It's been a blast. I love doing this as always. If you're new, you have questions, shoot me a message on Discord. I love to take those. I just got yelled at because I forgot to answer to somebody from last week, so I got to get back to him after this. But I love talking to new players and helping you out. So sure, if you guys have feedback or anything, hit it my way, hit it DRC's way. We'd love to talk to you.
All right, guys. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap it there. And you guys go out and tweak those lineups. Go see if you can't make the playoffs and make some noise in the leagues that you're in. And be sure to let us know next week. So with that, DRC and Kidneys are out.